Today we're taking a look at Psalm 8, verse 2, and if you recall from the prior video, this would actually be verse 3 in the Greek ordering. In the prior video, we looked at the introductory verse where the psalmist praises God and his name because he's high and exalted above heaven and earth, and now we're going to continue with more praise. Ek stomatos nepion ke thelazon ton katertiso ainon. Heneka ton ekthron su to katelusai ekthron kai ekdiketain. Well, let's start with this first prepositional phrase. We have an ek here taking a genitive. Now it's an os, but this would be a third declension ending, so from mouth or from the mouth. And then we have two genitives here, genitive plurals, expressing whose mouth we're talking about. So the first word is from nepios, that means infant, so from the mouth of infants. And then we have a participle. This is from thelazo. You see the participle morpheme ont. You see the genitive plural ending. This is a straightforward genitive plural masculine present active participle, and this word means to nurse. So from the mouth of infants, plural, and nursing ones are those who are nursing. Then our main verb is katertiso. This is from katartizo, and even though it has an omega with the sigma here that tells us it's aorist, this may, and the lengthening here, this may initially be confusing, but given the fact that it is an aorist indicative here, this is actually not a first singular. You have to remember that the aorist second singular middle actually takes the omega as well due to a bunch of spelling changes under the hood. Given that we've got a bunch of Su's and the U is the reference here, that actually kind of makes sense. So it's actually you, that is God, you are doing this. And we'll come back to the meaning of the verb here in a second. And it's ainon, which means praise. So the verb here is actually a you. It's a middle from katartizo. I wasn't exactly sure initially how to gloss that, so I looked it up in Muriaka, and you'll see the katartizo and the different spellings there. One option is to put various or multiple components together to produce something, and he includes 8:3, that's this verse, as one example. So I would, in this case, maybe simplify it to be something like to prepare. So that's how I would go with that one. So out of the mouth of infants and nursing ones, you have prepared praise. Then we have an interesting transition. We have a heneka here, which is something like on behalf of or for the sake of, and then it's ekthron, which is derived from either ekthron or ekthros, and this would be enemies. And it's your enemies. So on behalf of your enemies, in other words, you have the babies praising God, but now something's happening to God's enemies. That praise of the infants does a kataluoing. Notice this is an articular infinitive. It's from kataluo. This is aorist active infinitive. That means to destroy. And so the praise of the babies and the nursing ones is actually on behalf of the enemies as well who listen in order to destroy. And then we have ekthron, which would be enemy or enmity, and ekdiketain, which would be something like those who avenge or an avenger, someone who's trying to get revenge on God. So it's quite interesting, that dynamic, that the praise of the babies that God has established is actually to render null, to nullify the opposition of enemies and opponents or avengers. And on that point, this may sound familiar because it is actually referenced in Matthew 21 by Jesus himself. So Matthew 21, 15 and 16, we read this: When the chief priest and the scribes saw the wonders that he, that is Jesus, did, and the children shouting in the temple, Hosanna to the Son of David. This is right after the triumphal entry, when Jesus went into the temple, his teaching. They were indignant. In other words, they opposed Jesus. And they said to him, do you hear what these children are saying? And Jesus replied, yes. Have you never read, which of course they should have because they're the trained religious experts, you, so there's the katertizo, is actually verbatim from the Greek rendering here. You have prepared, so hence my rendering earlier, praise from the mouths of infants and nursing babies. So it is exactly from Psalm 8:2. And so what's interesting about this dynamic is that what's actually playing out, so Jesus isn't simply saying, hey, young people are going to praise me, although that seems to be true on the surface. But by citing the first half of verse 2, he's bringing in, through metalepsis, the entire thing. And in the broader context of Psalm 8:2, you actually have the fact that the praise of the babies and the nursing ones, these children in the temple, is intended, in fact, to thwart the enemies. Who are the enemies? These very chief priests and scribes who are standing against Jesus, who are indignant towards him. And so actually the entirety of Psalm 8:2, it's like a script. You've got the babies praising God. Now it's actually praising Jesus. So hint, hint, little sign of divine Christology there. And that, in fact, is designed to overturn, to kataluo the enmity against God, which is playing out by these very characters who don't like the fact that the children are crying out against Jesus, or crying out in favor of Jesus. So really lovely way that Jesus pulls not only this bit from Psalm 8:2, but there's a subtle nod to the dynamic in Psalm 8:2 as well. So fun stuff this morning from Psalm 8:2.